In this lesson, we are going to talk about polyhedrons or polyhedra. So a polyhedron is essentially just when we have polygons, so like a square, rectangles, triangles, and we take these flat pieces. So if you were to cut out a bunch of squares on a piece of paper and tape them together on the corners to make a cube, okay, that would make a polyhedra. Okay, so it's essentially just a 3D object, like a cube. Okay, so a polyhedra is made up of flat surfaces that enclose a single region. So thinking again like a cube, kind of like a Rubik's Cube, looking at the outside pieces and then kind of ignoring the inside. So the first part here is if I were to highlight this section here, or more importantly, I'll highlight up here just to see it a little bit better. That's called the face. So a face, okay, is a flat surface of the polyhedron, and it's just made of a bunch of polygons. So a square, triangle, and so forth. Then the next here, a line segment where the faces intersect, that there, you guys, is just called the edge. Okay, so the edges. So here that I'm highlighting in purple here, those are all edges. Okay, so it's the line segments where the faces intersect. So a couple examples of a polyhedron, is, first of all, a prism. So a prism is when you have a polyhedron with two congruent faces that are polygons contained in parallel lines. Those two congruent faces are called the bases. So in a prism, you can only have two bases. Okay, so that's the big thing here. So thinking of a prism, like a little bit of an easier way to think about it, is if we have a rectangular prism, okay, so if I were to kind of make this really good, as you all know, I'm very artistic. So this would be a rectangle. Think of it kind of like an accordion. Okay, so here, this would be a base, and then back here would be a base. And then these here are the parallel lines, okay? So then again, parallel lines of our prism. Then a regular prism is when we have a regular polygon, so all sides / angles, oops, not sangles, angles are congruent. I'll say equal. Okay, and then we have pyramids. So all faces except one intersect at one point. So we have this face down below, this flat surface, right? This face will not intersect all at one point. So notice that one point is here. So this is called a pyramid. Okay, so as you can see, we're just going over some vocabulary here. So how to name a prism or a pyramid. The big thing is a prism has two bases. Okay, a pyramid has one base. Okay, and you name them based on their base. So name based off the base. Okay, so for example, if it is a square, sorry, a rectangle, rectangular prism. If the base is a triangle, it is a triangular prism. As you can see here in this one, our base here, right, because there's two of these faces and there's one in the back, okay, this is 5 sides, so it's a pentagonal prism. Okay, so here are some examples of regular polyhedrons. There's exactly 5. So here we have a tetrahedron. It's 4 faces. It's an equilateral triangle down below as your face. We have a square hexahedron. Okay, so then we have an octahedron, dodecahedron, and so forth. So it's just, again, the number of faces. So before we talked about the number of sides. So for example, like an octagon has only 8 sides, right? Well, now if we think about it, an octahedron has 8 faces. So if you count the triangles, so there's one face here, here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 down below, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 faces, not sides. Now, these examples are ones of non-polyhedron. So a cylinder is a solid with congruent bases in a pair of parallel lines. So a solid of congruent bases in a pair of parallel lines. As you see here, a flat surface of a polyhedra. All faces are polygons. So here, as you can tell, this is a wraparound, right? So you have the circles. Great, awesome. Okay. But the outside surface, which we will talk about, is called the lateral area here, is not a flat surface. Again, a cone, a circular base with a vertex up top, but then it's, of course, the lateral edge is circular, and then a sphere. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a couple examples here. So please feel free if you'd like to pause the video to answer the questions on your own and then kind of hear me walk through them, or hear me walk through them and then kind of go from there and see what happens. So here it says, tell whether this solid is a polyhedron. So yes or no. If so, identify the shape of the base. So is it a triangle, pentagon, square, rectangle, octagon, hexagon, heptagon, and then name the solid. So the solid is going to be a prism or a pyramid. Okay, and then this is that name of the shape. So all of these here are polyhedra. Okay, so we all know that they're polyhedron because we have those faces and we have those edges, and those all meet at these points, these corners, which are called vertices. Okay, so here we see that we have two triangles, one here and one here. This is going to be a triangular prism. Okay, so we have two bases. Remember, so prism is two bases. The next one we have here, absolutely another prism. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, so it's a pentagonal prism. Again, two bases. The next one here, we have just the one base down below, and it has 4 sides. Now, we are not given the notation to say, okay, those are all congruent, so we cannot assume that it's a square. But what we can assume is that it's a rectangle. What we can say, it's a rectangular pyramid. Okay, and again, there's only one base. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and identify the solid here and name everything. So the name of this solid, remember, you're looking for the two bases. So that's your goal, is to look for two, and I should say the two of the same shape. And again, the guys, they only happen twice, okay? So, for example, like you have this QMT, that plane, and this plane down below. That's great, but then you also have these guys here that look very similar. The two that look very different from each other are the plane MNO and the plane QRS. So here we know this is absolutely a rectangular prism. I know those look like squares, but again, we don't have the notation on there, so we're going to say it's a rectangular. Okay, then the bases, of course, of what I highlighted, so it's the plane M, N, O, and the plane. Remember, you have to have 3 letters for when you're naming a plane, Q, R, S. Then we have the faces. So the faces, we have this top guy. We also have the side, you could also say. Right, so we have the side here. So there's a whole bunch, there's actually 4 faces, right? So there's a total of 4 faces. And then, for example, we can say plane QRN. Actually, it's not a T, that's an N. Or plane, let's say MPT. So it's that back one back here. Okay. So then the next thing is the edges. So the edges are, guys, honestly, it's nothing fancy. It's literally the corners. It's or not these lines, right, that are going across. So like QM is an edge. Okay. NO is an edge. Right, and it's not limited to only these ones. There's so many edges. A vertex is literally the corners, these little corners. These are all vertices where you're going to have three planes intersect. I should say three faces. Be more specific. Three faces intersect. So think of them as corners. All right, next here, this is just two examples. So honestly, oops, I didn't even realize this was here. I would go ahead, you guys, and pause the video, try and answer these questions on your own, and then when you push play, the answers will be here, and I'll kind of walk through real quick how to do them. Okay, so at this point, this is kind of a work on your own and see kind of what you can understand, what you remember from watching this video. All right, so taking a look here, identify the solid. It's a rectangular prism. Okay, because we have two bases, so of course it's a prism. Remember, prism versus pyramid. Pyramid has one base, prism has two. Find the perimeter. So since it's rectangular, right, so we have here, these are going to be congruent. These two would be congruent. So 5 plus 5 plus 7 plus 7, we'll get 24 inches. Find the area of the base. So you're going to do 5 times 7, right, length times width, inches squared. And how far apart are the bases? So you can see here I kind of labeled here, this is the height. So that distance there, how far are they thinking of? If you take an accordion and stretch it like an accordion, what's that distance? Well, 12 inches. Next one is a triangular prism. We have here two bases still, so of course it's going to be a prism, and those are triangles. Finding the perimeter, if you guys notice, this 25.8 is that hypotenuse. So I just went ahead and brought it right over here because the two bases will be the same. Add them all up, and then you have your perimeter. Finding the area of one of the bases, you're just going to do base times height, multiply those, divide it by 2, you're going to get 115 meters squared. And then again, same thing like the last one, how far apart are the two bases? As you see here, you have the two bases. Think of it like an accordion. It's going to be 45 meters. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. Your homework, again, is in your homework packet. It is very similar to what we did in the notes. You're just going to be looking at these different figures, identifying what type of solid they are, naming if they are a prism, pyramid, and then going from being more specific. Is it triangular? Is it pentagonal? And going from there. These last ones, you have to find the area and perimeter, so make sure you guys are using your formulas if you don't have them memorized or don't know how to identify them just yet. If you guys have questions, let me know. We will definitely be going over this tomorrow, but I do have to say we are jumping right into prisms and going through that vocabulary more in depth and looking at the equations and finding the area, volume, and surface area, lateral area, and volume. So just be ready for it. If you have questions again, let me know.